Okay, we are going to talk about all things pattern testing, which is probably why you clicked on this video. I'm going to share all the tea with how to find pattern tests, how to be the best tester, and what to look for when you're testing. Grab a notebook because you're going to want to take notes on this. Let's dive in. Okay, so let's start with what is pattern testing. So crochet and knit designers will put a pattern to test before they are going to release it out to the public, either for sale or for free. So a group of people will apply for the pattern test, and then the designer will pick from that pool of people to be the actual testers for the pattern. Usually a designer will have an allotted number of people that they want for that test. So for something small, they might only want 4 to 6 testers. And for something large like clothing, they might want 20 testers because they need people from all different sizes. So I'm going to share with you the reason or the why designers acquire pattern testers. Patterns need to be read and worked up so they can ensure clarity of the wording, the correction of errors within the written work and the pattern, and to get perspective of people who live all over the world. This helps to improve the final product before it gets put out to be sold to the public. So for instance, you want to make sure that the wording makes sense because it is easy to throw in some slang that might not be understood all around the world. A pattern tester will search out errors on the pattern as well as the written work to ensure that the product that they put out is perfect. Now, some higher end designers will have their patterns tech edited, and this will ensure that everything is really well done. So they make sure that the math is correct, the wording is all correct, the numbers and everything look good. They check for typos and consistency and things like that. Another useful tool of the pattern tester is in the design process. You might help with sizing if you're testing clothing, or you might help finding an easier way of putting together an amigurumi plush. So you might be thinking, who can actually pattern test? Well, really anybody can apply. Most pattern designers actually have some sort of a requirement, like that you would have a public crochet account, something like that, so that the designer can actually see your work and you can help promote their product. Most pattern designers actually want people who are in all different skill levels, because usually people will buy a pattern and not really realize that it's too hard for them. And so having somebody who's maybe newer to crochet and older to crochet, they can kind of help make things more well balanced. A lot of designers end up using the same trusted people that they've used in the past. Now, this isn't to say that they always use the same people and that you shouldn't apply, because you really should. But a lot of designers do use people that they've trusted over and over again, because they know that those people are going to have good follow through within the testing process. So I've tested multiple patterns by the same designers because they know that I've done a good job and they appreciate my work. Being a really good tester pays off, and we'll talk about that a little bit more shortly. Okay, so let's talk about where to find pattern tests. So mainly you'll find them on social media. A designer will make a post on their social media page, and then you can either apply right on that post, or sometimes they have you apply on a Google document that's in their link in their bio. Some designers have Patreon, and they might pick their patrons before they pick their social media people, just because their patrons are usually paying for a monthly service through them. So they usually get first dibs on things like that. Another way to be on the lookout of things like pattern tests is to sign up for email lists of certain designers. So you might be thinking, how do you find a designer? Well, when you're on Pinterest or on Instagram and you're perusing through and you see something that you like, go to that designer's page and follow them. And when they do tester calls, you can apply then. Once you see a test call post on Instagram or Facebook, make sure it's open. So usually in the description right below the post or the reel, there will be maybe a little section that says open or closed. Make sure it's open so that you can actually comment down below. If it's closed, don't bother. And then what you'll do is you'll make sure and read the requirements written in that section of the description. So like I said previously, a lot of designers will want you to have a public crochet account. So if you don't have that already, now's a good time to start setting that up. So create an Instagram for your personal crochet account, And then make sure you're posting pictures of things that you make, and preferably pictures and reels, things like that, because designers are going to want to see that you have the skills to be able to complete a project, to make it look nice, that you know what you're doing. Plus, having your own crochet account means that you're going to post pictures of this, and their product is also going to get out to the world by you sharing what you've made from them. So when a pattern test post goes out, a lot of designers will have you share it to your story, comment down below, and they'll have you kind of save the post. Those are all things that kind of just help the algorithm on their post. Apply in the description down below, or apply through like a Google document, which is linked in their bio. Most designers will also want you to take high quality photos of the product that you make and send them to them, just so that they can have those for their social media and like a tester appreciation post. And some designers actually put that in the pattern as well. Like they put your name and things like that just as a thank you to them. So that's kind of cool too. So you might be wondering, when do pattern tests come about? Well, that's easy. When a pattern is completed by a designer, before it is going to be public to be sold or for free, even some designers will even do pattern testing for a free product, they will put it out to test. So usually you'll start seeing like posts like leading up to the pattern test. So these are things like getting you excited, getting the public excited about this pattern. So you'll start seeing posts before the pattern tester call even happens. This is a good time to like, comment, and all of that on those posts if it's something that you might want to test. Now, pattern tests are available literally all year long. Like there's never not a time where I don't see a pattern test available online. So, but I have found that there's a lot of them that pop up after Christmas because the rush of Christmas is over, the market season is over, and so designers are like getting excited now to like shift into having some patterns tested. I also notice a lot more pattern tester calls when there's a change of season or like a holiday coming up, because designers want those patterns to get out before the holiday. Okay, so how do you actually do the testing? Once you're picked for a pattern test, most designers will have a like time frame. So they might give you a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks if it's a bigger project like a garment, or 4 weeks if it's maybe a huge blanket, things like that. So while the designer will usually want you to take high-end quality photos of the products that you make, you also want to make sure that you ask the designer if you can post pictures before the pattern is released. So some designers actually want you to wait and not post anything until the actual pattern drops. But some designers like that tease and that kind of getting people excited moment. So they will let you post kind of progress pictures and things like that as you're working on it. So some designers will have criteria that they want you to look for while you're pattern testing. So they might actually provide you with a Google document or maybe an email with like just a sheet of questions. So these are things that the designer will want you to look for while you're doing the actual test. So they might ask you like what kind of yarn you're using, what hook, what size your product came out as, maybe how long it took you, things like that. So you always want to look at those and read those before you actually start the pattern, just so you know what to be looking for. Quite a few designers actually do a group chat like on Instagram. And this is a good spot where you can ask questions to the designer or to the other members of the tester group. So now if the designer does not have a questionnaire form, a lot of people will put their fixes or the things that they find wrong. They usually will put that in the group chat. I actually prefer not to do that. Here's why. So I am extremely thorough when I do a pattern test. So not only do I make the product. So this is actually a pattern test that I'm working on for Chloe X Crochet. And it's a crocheted top. So this will be like the bottom part, and you'll work up and then do like a kind of like a V that covers the chest area. And then it will drape off the shoulder just a little bit. It's called the mermaid top. And I'm so excited because it's turning out so beautiful. So I cannot wait to get this out. Anyway, so what I do is I like to actually make the pattern, and then I print out the pattern, and I literally go with a mark or a pen, not a marker. Well, sometimes a marker, I guess, if I'm highlighting, but I'll take a pen and I will go through and mark all of the things that I find wrong. So I look for grammatical errors. I look for spaces, like if something is not spaced correctly or aligned correctly on the page. I look for just an overall, like I look at the page as an overall and just make sure everything looks kind of cohesive. I think sometimes, like I've noticed, designers will maybe lump everything to one side and then you have kind of an open space. So I kind of just like look at those things, like overall, does it look nice? It can come off like I'm picking the pattern apart, which I kind of am, but I also want to do a really good job, and I want the pattern designer to put out a great product, because I love, like if I'm applying for a pattern test, not only do I love the designer, but I love the thing that I'm making. So I really want to help them do a good job. So it might look like I'm picking it apart and there's 100 things wrong with it, when in reality, I'm just noting down everything that I see. Now, so then what I do is, instead of putting it in the group chat, I send it privately as an email, just so that I'm not tearing them apart in a group of people. I feel like that's kind of rude, and I just don't want to come off like that. So I do it privately in an email. And I think that that really helps a lot. And I do preface when I send the email, hey, I'm making sure that I note everything that I see, take it all with a grain of salt, kind of a thing. Like, it doesn't hurt my feelings if they don't take everything that I say. It's okay. But I just want to know that I did the best job that I could. Plus, if it's all in one email, I feel like it's a little easier to go through and just fix everything on the form versus trying to go through a group chat where you're scanning through tons of questions and all kinds of other things. I feel like that just seems very overwhelming. So I feel like an email just is, everything is in one spot and easier to find. So some designers might not take all of your critiques, and that's okay. That's their prerogative. It's their pattern. They can do what they want. So for instance, I'm the type of person that I like when patterns have page numbers written on the bottom. Like, honestly, that's really one of my pet peeves. I really want the pattern to have a page number. And the reason being is because I print out the pattern, and so what I do is, to save ink, I usually print multiple pages onto one page. And so that allows me to like have have multiple pages on one and save ink. But then I need the page number because it just is a little bit easier in my brain and quick to see it on there. And so I prefer that. Now, some designers, they don't add that on there, and they don't prefer to have it on there. And that's okay. That, again, is their prerogative. So if a designer doesn't take what you have to say, it's fine. It's not really that big of a deal. It's a suggestion. You made a suggestion. You put your thought out there, and if they take it, great. If they don't, then it's not your pattern. And when you make a pattern, you can make it exactly how you want it. Okay, so here's some tea that you really need to know. There's pattern testing etiquette. Listen, you need to know this. If you don't follow this, it's not going to go well for you. So a designer, if you get picked for a pattern test, a designer will send you the pattern, usually for free. Now, with that being said, your obligation is to make the pattern, go through the written work, send the photos, send the feedback. If you don't do that by the deadline, the pattern designer will be angry, just so you know, and you could get blacklisted off of their page, or like from ever doing pattern tests with this person again. Most of the time, we're picking patterns from designers that we like. We're picking things that we think are beautiful. And if we get blacklisted from doing patterns with them again, that's not going to be good. You're not going to like that. So make sure you do everything by the deadline. Now, I will say most designers are very easygoing. And if there's something that went awry at your house or some big life event happened, most designers are pretty understanding if you can't meet the deadline or whatever. But I've met designers over the years who are super, super strict, and they're like, you're going to be charged if you don't do this pattern test and complete it and all of that. And I asked one of them one time, I was like, have you had people like bail on you? And this designer said that she has, and she's had people not complete it, and here they end up with a free pattern and didn't do the work for her like she asked. And so I can see how that could be frustrating as a designer. So just make sure, proper etiquette is if you're going to sign up, you do the work and do it by the deadline. So most pattern testers do not get compensated for their work as a tester. You get the free pattern usually. Some people might even give you like a yarn allowance, but that's not very common. But you also get exposure. So if you have a crochet page, you get exposure because usually the designer will do a tester appreciation post and they'll tag you in that. And so you'll get kind of that exposure through that, plus the free pattern. So I don't know, I think those are kind of cool things and worth it for me to do the pattern test for someone. So as you're doing your pattern test, you want to follow the pattern exactly as it says on the paper, because the designer needs to make sure that it is working up exactly how it's supposed to. So to make sure that you're not changing the pattern in any way unless you're given permission to do that. So make sure to record any errors or suggestions that you find as you're going along or at the end of the process, just so that you remember to tell the designer all of the things that you're seeing. There also might be multiple revisions of the pattern before it's ready. So make sure you're patient and willing to work with the designer as this process is happening. Most pattern tests that I apply for are through Instagram. And so the designer will actually make a group chat through Instagram. And when all of us are put in that group chat, I actually go through and follow all of the other designers that are in the group just as a courtesy to them, because who doesn't want followers on the gram? All right, so I'm going to give you my final thoughts. Pattern tests are supposed to be fun. So don't stress too much. Don't get overwhelmed. It's really not as hard as it might seem. Just make sure you do a good job, and your good work, your hard work will shine through. And if you're not selected for a pattern test, don't take it personal. It's not, anything that you did wrong. It's not that you're not qualified enough. Honestly, there are so many people that apply for pattern tests. It can be hard. It can be hard as a designer to narrow it down and choose, 5 people out of 50 people. So don't take it personal. Just keep applying. Apply for as many as you can make work, and I know you'll get picked. One little hint is that it'll be easier to get picked from smaller designers versus larger designers with a huge following. Because a smaller designer who maybe only has 2,000, 5,000 followers, they don't have as many people seeing their posts as a designer who has 100,000 followers, right? So it's probably a little bit easier to just get accepted into these smaller accounts first, which that'll give you good exposure. It'll give you good practice. So then when you actually get accepted into some of the bigger designers' products, you'll know what you're doing. And getting accepted into some of the smaller designers' tests will actually give you good exposure and allow you to make some of these products, get them on your crochet page so that the bigger designers can finally see your work and you'll have a good portfolio for them. Okay, so I think I covered everything there is to know about pattern testing. I hope you learned something new. If I forgot anything, comment down below. If you have any questions, let me know. I can answer them for you. I've been in tons of pattern tests and it's so much fun. And I love to share all of my information with you guys. If you are new to my page, I'd love for you to subscribe to my channel. I put out a new video every Wednesday. Thanks for spending your time on my little corner of the internet, and we'll see you next week. Bye.